So today on the NFNLP forum, welcome everybody up on Facebook Live and here on Zoom. I just had the wonderful opportunity to teach in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada, and it was the essentials of NLP, and it was kind of like the greatest hits. That's the way we intended it, but a lot of times it's really cool when you start teaching something like that. It'll kind of morph if you allow it, and this one was specifically designed that way for us to have some fun and begin to make some changes and to morph. And so we started a conversation, Richard Nongard and I, about why is NLP stuck? You know, why is NLP stuck? You know, it started in the, whether you want to say late 60s, early 70s, then it, you know, kind of exploded, came on the scene, did some cool things. Hi, Jennifer. And, you know, we had some fun with it, and it was growing, and then it's kind of stagnated, right? It kind of takes off in spurts and does some things, right? But so what, you know, why? What's going on with it? Well, supposedly NLP was founded and was Richard Bandler, John Grinder, David Gordon, Robert Dilts, and a few others, Stephen Connie Ray Andreas. You know, there was a few, and they started studying human excellence. You know, why were some people better at things than other people? And especially in the therapeutic world. So, you know, they had Fritz Perls, and they had an inside shot with Fritz Perls because, you know, Steve Andreas was his grandson. So they had, you know, it was easy to actually get in touch with him and things, right? And then they studied Virginia Satir, and then they studied, and a couple others, and then Milton Erickson. I do have my questions about studying with Milton Erickson, and the reason I still have my questions is Milton Erickson had a fundamental rule: he would not train lay people. That, you know, his organization to this day, the American Society of Clinical Hypnosis, will not train lay people. They want you to have a license. And when Milton was alive, they would not train social workers. It was only, he didn't want to train psychologists. He didn't consider them, he wanted them to be medical doctors. So then somewhat the joke was, you know, they'll train a podiatrist. They didn't want to train a psychologist. They didn't want to train social workers. But he wanted you to be a medical doctor. So that was the rule. All right. And then they did add like some psychologists and stuff. Great. And that organization to this day, you got to be a licensed professional, master's level or above, preferably doctorate. I think they accept a few master's level, but you have to be fully licensed. So if that's being the case, then I still want someone to look me in the eye and answer, then why did he supposedly train so much to lay people, right? Richard Bandler had a bachelor's degree from what I understand, and great, brilliant man. I'm not saying it's not brilliant, but, you know, he was a science major, I think a computer programmer, right? John Grinder had his doctorate in linguistics, but they weren't mental health professionals. They weren't licensed people. So why, you know, if he had this rule, why would he train someone to go train lay people? That was his sticking point. So anyway, put that aside, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So they studied some of these people, and they developed some really cool patterns. And what they found was, we call it modeling now, that if I study what you do and I do what you do, I can replicate it, right? And then it got deeper, not just the, you know, like in sports, it could be the physical motions, you know, how you swing the bat, how you throw the ball, that'll speed it up. Then they were the first ones, and sports psychology's done that for a long, sports physiology, but then they added the thought processes, right? And, you know, if you model the thought processes and some of the physiology stuff, then magic happens, and it kept duplicating it. But one of the things I've kind of noticed is a lot of people have not really keep studying the newer stuff, and also gone into, you know, taking it in totally different directions, right? From sales and marketing, you know, whatever it is, you know, hey, Jordan, how are you doing? Yeah, I put together a course, I think it was last year, on, because people started asking, you know, in our world, it kind of ties into what we're doing, what makes Tony Robbins Tony Robbins? You know, and they'll practice the big movements, you know, back in the early 80s, you know, guys would wear the blue suit with the white shirt, the red tie, suspenders. That's what Tony Robbins was, you know, his primary target market was yuppies. And So they would model this, they tried to put together a seminar with the music. They did some of the outside things. They didn't look at the inner things that made the person what they were, right? And again, you could do that. You can model some of the behaviors and it'll make you better at what you do. And that's kind of what happens with NLP. But it doesn't always go to the next level. What's the thought process behind it? What's the values, beliefs, attitude, outlook that drives the person to do the things that you're learning to do, whatever that is? But what's the thought processes behind it? Again, you could replicate the physical things, but if you don't have the thought processes behind it, it's obviously not going to get the same result. So when you look at that, right, and you begin to look at all these things, you realize that's one reason I think NLP's become a little bit stagnant, right? And the people that really learn it, in my opinion, the people that really learn it, many of them break off and start doing somewhat different things. Tony Robbins being the best example, my dear friend Tony Robbins, right? He kind of repackaged it as neuroassociative conditioning. There's marketing. There's a lot of reasons behind all that, but he also took it in a different direction, right? He just took off and took it in a different direction. I've seen that with people that learn it. Maybe they go in different directions, from master sales trainers to other things. So when you look at that, right? One of the cool things they did, and Tony Robbins, when he was first starting out, told this story a lot. And he was part of the team. I don't think he wasn't the lead guy on it, from what I understand. But they studied the best pistol shooters in the United States Army. The book is in the second or third best book on NLP, Warrior's Edge, Strategies for the Corporate Battlefield. But he breaks down all this stuff. It was by Colonel John Alexander, who studied NLP in the 70s and was part of the JEDI project for the Defense and Research Initiative. And, they're trying to make better warriors. So they decide, well, if this NLP can help people learn things quicker, let's take it to the next level. And let's do it with something we can easily test. Did someone learn something, right? And so they picked pistol shooting, right? So shooting a hand weapon. And because we know they had statistics, right? And they knew what their current training was. I think it was five long days. They would shoot around 750 rounds of ammunition. A very small percentage, like 20% would shoot expert, or less. About 50% would qualify on the first round. So they had some numbers, right? And so they were always trying to duplicate it and do some things, right? And so when the NLP guys got in there, they started looking at, what was there any similar? They had the 3 best pistol shooters they could find, 2 sergeants and a colonel, and they were looking for, is there any physical thing that's the same? Hey Ellen, hey Margaret, hey Jimmy, how you doing there in beautiful Indonesia? And I'm not sure where Miss Manjeet is. Said Margaret, but I can't read that far. I can't model great eyesight yet. But anyway, so they were looking at pistol shooters, was how they held the weapon, what's the ritual behind it, how they loaded it, how they do this. Just like you could study sports, guys have different rituals, how they put on their uniform, how they tie their shoes, all this. That they figured out that really didn't have much to do with it, except for the breathing. All the excellent shooters could control their breathing. This kind of makes sense, right? Because if you're breathing fast, your hand's going to shake, all that kind of stuff. So they could, we could teach the breathing. And, why the military never bothered that, who knows? But that sounds like, bureaucracy. But what they really broke down was they started figuring out what was the thought processes behind the people that were the elite shooters, And I'm going to paraphrase it and probably slaughter a lot of it because it's been a long time since I read the study. But they started looking at some of those thought processes. And one of the things they found was the elite shooters, none of them thought about firing the weapon, right? They also all thought that shooting a handgun, shooting a hand, weapon was natural, normal, and easy to do. In fact, they couldn't understand why everyone couldn't do it well. They also thought that once you learned how to do it, it became a skill that became just inbred in you. You didn't have to work that hard at it. right? Fine, right? So they had this, right? And like I said, they didn't think about they didn't fire the weapon. They released the bullet to go down range. And all of them had the thought process that the bullet really wants to hit the target. You know, I'm aiming it, but the bullet, if I don't screw it up, the bullet will hit the target, right? They never wanted to blame the weapon or the bullet. It was, I'll release the bullet to go down range. The bullet wants to hit the target, right? And so there was a couple other things I can't remember right offhand, but those were the big ones. You know, that it was natural, normal, easy to learn. You did it quick. Once you learn the skill, it stayed with you. All these kind of things, right? One of them supposedly said, I heard Colonel Alexander, if I'm not mistaken, kind of talk. Says one of them says it's kind of like riding a bike. You know, once you learn how it's there, you might be a little rusty. If I hadn't shot for a while, it might be a little rusty. It doesn't take long to get the skill back. Now that was one I could relate to. So then when they decided, so they had all this stuff, right? In the military, you know, plus they had some things in the training that had nothing to do with firing the weapon or shooting the weapon, right? So when they went to duplicate it, they had 15 people, right? I think it was 12 or 15 people in the first group. That the only control variable was that none of them had had much, if any, experience shooting a handgun, right? That they had, you know, that they were basically neutral about it. They didn't think much either way. Fine, right? So they were neutral about shooting this gun, right? So they had no preconceived notions because it's harder to uninstall something. So when they started training these novices, the first thing they did, you know, and the Army wants to start like, here's the weapon, here's how you take the weapon apart, that has nothing to do with shooting the weapon. They kind of told the group that those metaphors, like what you're going to do in the next couple of days is like it's like riding a bike. Once you learn, it's easy to do, it's natural, it's normal, it's fun. Once you learn, it stays in your neurology, it's easy, you know, it's enjoyable, it's not challenging, right? So all these people are like, oh, cool, we're going to do this, right? And it was very, you know, in fact, this course is impossible to fail if you just do what we say. Fine, right? So these people are sucking it up, right? And now, if you've ever been around the military, that's not usually how they train you, right? They usually yell at you and call you things, and, you know, it's a lot of pressure. So this was kind of different. And then they talked about, you know, you're not, and then they just kind of installed the shooting the gun, shooting the hand weapon, with the thought processes. Like, you know, you're not shooting the weapon, you're releasing the bullet to go down range. You know, this bullet really wants to hit the target if you don't screw it up. Just the bullet will do it if you relax. And then they did some things on breathing so they could control their breathing, right? So they did a few other things. But anyway, to cut to the end of the story, it only took them about a day and a half. They shot less than 250 rounds of ammunition. Everybody qualified, over half shot expert, right? And then supposedly on like a 6-month follow-up, even the ones that didn't fire the weapon a lot, right, would shoot pretty well. First few rounds, they weren't, you know, and you ask them why. It's because once you learn how to do this, you never forget, you know. And also they kind of installed, supposedly, that, you know, the weapons may change, but, you know, it's like driving a car. Either you're a good driver or you're not a good driver. If I got a really good car, I'm a really great driver. If you give me a crappy car, I'm still a really good driver in a crappy car. And they use that kind of analogy with the weapon, right? If you have a beautiful, balanced, perfect weapon, you'll probably be, you know, you'd be super good. But if you had just a, you know, even like a Saturday night special, you'll still be better than most people. So that was the study. Now, did the military do anything with it? No, because A, it made too much sense. And also, it's hard to change a bureaucracy. But if you think about the thought processes, and when I talk about modeling, this is one of the things I've always, and I'm really going back to the beginning and really reinstalling it in my stuff, is that's the missing ingredient if I'm going to teach you how to model. You know, what's the thoughts, the values, the beliefs, the behaviors, the outlooks, and all of that. Started teaching that in my trainer's training. You know, if somebody wants to learn how to teach other people, right, I can teach you an NLP technique. You know, anybody can do that. Pick up a script, take a deep breath, close your eyes, imagine a movie, do the. You can do that, right? So when I'm training people now, and I want all my trainers to start to do this, what attitudes, values, beliefs, and behavior, not just the behaviors, but what is this mental process behind the NLP I'm teaching you, or you know, in a couple weeks I get to go to beautiful Lebanon and teach a neurolinguistic hypnosis class. What's the mindset behind what they're going to be doing, the hypnosis or the NLP? What's the mindset, right? Now that becomes subconscious. And this was always very evident to me, and I've talked to a lot of other trainers about this. When you're at a conference and you meet people, I'll use hypnosis as an analogy, it's easy sometimes to spot who trained someone by talking to them, right? You know, maybe they have a certain attitude. They're very serious and dour and da 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 da. This is the way you do this, this, and this. Well, you ask a couple questions and you begin to figure out, guess what their trainer was? Serious and dour and, you know, very focused and da 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 da, right? And then if they have a lighthearted, playful attitude, if you go back to their trainer, they were lighthearted, they were playful, they were an attitude. Again, when someone's first learning a skill, much like those guys and girls when they were first learning to shoot the handgun, right? They didn't have any experience with it. Someone's coming in to learn NLP or hypnosis. Maybe they were hypnotized, but they don't have much experience with it. So what attitudes, they're going to model what the trainer's doing unconsciously or subconsciously, you know, or beyond your conscious awareness. So what attitudes, values, and beliefs are you installing, right? And, you know, and so that's, to me, one of the missing ingredients. Are we installing the playfulness and the curiosity to take this to the next level, right? Unfortunately, a lot of the NLP stuff is turned into multi-level marketing. Take the basic, and then they try to, some of them almost give away the basic to upsell you into the master program. Oh my God, now you're almost there. Take the trainer's training. You're not quite done yet. Take the master training. Oh, then we have this. And I got all these trainings too, but it's like, and then once you become a trainer, now go get your friends and teach them NLP. So it's kind of like, yeah, you join Amway, get to the silver thing, and then bring your friends in. Yeah, right? But are you installing the attitudes, values, and beliefs so you want to like morph and change and do things at a different level? So, you know, that's one of the things I wanted to put out there, you know, in this week's NFNLP forum, because to me, it's interesting. You know, are you taking it to the next level? You know, every year or two, I try to totally redo the basic NLP. Now I'm still teaching all the base because I still use the martial arts analogy. You know, if you're going to learn the martial arts, someone could teach you a fancy, you know, technique. You could do the technique, but you don't understand it. You don't have the fundamentals. So to me, the basics are the fundamentals. But what we know now about the fundamentals is much different than what we knew 10 years ago, especially 20 or 30 years ago. And some people haven't updated their training, right? So like the new behavior generator. Okay, you're gonna watch a movie of your model doing something, right? Fine, right? You want to be a better public speaker, you're gonna model Tony Robbins, great. You can see Tony being energetic and loud and confident, and you can you can see that, and you're gonna model it. But do you know his values, attitudes, beliefs? Do you know all the homework he did behind the scenes to get him where he was, all the prep work, all the rehearsal? You know, no, you're just seeing the end result. Well, guess what? You'll never make that end result look or be as good as what they're doing unless you know how to do all the prep work, all the rehearsal to get that good, right? And so it just, and then, yes, we can use NLP and hypnosis to speed this up, but you got to be looking at the right values, beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors for you to do that, right? It's not just this. There's a lot more to it, right? So much like the shooters, you know, when they were learning that, okay, I can show you how to hold a weapon. I can help you control your breathing. That'll probably help make you a better shot. That alone, most people go, ooh, I've got it. That's why NLP grew. The NLP world was the first one to go, you know, not to want to do 6 months of psychotherapy before they did anything. They'd show you like in one session how to control your breathing, how to do this. And for most people, they would experience a 10 to 20%, I'm just using numbers, but let's say a 10 to 20%, you know, increase in whatever it is they were trying to do. And they go, that's it, thank you. Yeah, I found nirvana, right? So, and then they kind of, you know, and then if they went and learned NLP, they didn't take it to the next level, right? So that alone will work. But what if you, much like the shooters, wait, no, before I show you the breathing in this, what if I show you the thoughts, the outlooks, and the beliefs, you know, the things behind it, right? And then if you have the skill set, it'll go to the next level. You know where I kind of see this in the real world here in the States, because I have people all over the world, but it's true for any sport. But here in the States, they always, in American professional football, that's the version of football where the guys beat each other up with all this equipment. But they always want a coach that is what they call the quarterback whisperer, right? Because all these athletes come into the league, they're talented. They have this physical skill set. They can throw the football, they can do this, right? But the good coaches, and you hear them talk about it, they're installing the right mindset into these athletes, And, I heard a guy talk about it that was very good at it after he retired. He said, unfortunately, if I don't get one of these guys when they're young, when they're new in their career, I can't change them. Very few of the people really were willing to change everything to get to the next level, because you've gotten to this level, especially let's use pro sports. They made it to the pros. So I'm good, but not everybody wants to go to this super elite level, whatever it happens to be. So it's kind of cool when you think about it, right? So we become like the whisperers, the quarterback whisperer. We're the weight loss whisperer. We're the golf whisperer. We're the, stop smoking whisperer. Because again, it's not just those little physical things that we're teaching people how to do. If you do it right, it's what's the mindset, what's the value, what's the attitude, what's the belief set underneath it, right? Then you can run with it, right? And again, if the people didn't get this new on, they're like the people that make the pros, but they never get any better. They're stuck right here, right? As opposed to the ones that get to this level and go, but there's so much more to learn, right? That's the first thing I always try to install on all my trainers, and even in the people taking basics, man. Dude, girl, there is so much more to learn. I've been doing this for like 35 years, and I'm just beginning to figure it out. Right? I'm pretty good at it, but I'm good. Oh, there's so much more to learn, and you'll go off on tangents. You'll go off on, I'm into neurology and biology and, epigenetics. I mean, there's so much to learn, right? And if you have that attitude, everything keeps changing. That's the cool stuff. That's the cool stuff, right? So again, going back to, so that's maybe why NLP got somewhat stuck. Who are we modeling? Are we modeling in different fields? At this training, Mr. Richard, Dr. Nungard and I were talking, because I don't call a lot of people in our field doctor unless they have a real doctorate, by the way. There's a whole backstory behind that. But, we were looking at like these elite sales trainers, what were they doing different than everybody else, right? So we were coming up with like elite sales strategies, and so, you could see some of it, but then, when people would watch it or listen to a video of going back to Zig Ziglar, or and the guy's name he's a bald-headed guy. He's like the top sales trainer, speaker right now out there. But anyway, they'll model a couple things, they'll pick up a few things, but they're not looking at what is the thought process behind it. They'll study a Zig Ziglar and they'll pick up, you need to check out from the neck up, you need an attitude adjustment, they'll model some of that, right? That's easy, but they don't really get to what does all that mean? What are those words he's saying? Why is he saying those things? What is his thoughts, his values and beliefs underneath it? Well, if you really get into what he was talking about, and this is where people don't do the research, it's like he loved people. He loved messing with people, but playing with people, showing them what they could do, how they could be better, and having fun with the process. He never made sales, and he would, he did talk about sales should be a fun process. You're helping people solve a problem. And if you're ethical enough, if you really can't solve their problem, you send them somewhere where they can, right? But, if you have that attitude, it's contagious, right? And that, and that's what we want to begin to do. So whether we're going to study sports or sales, marketing, advertising, whatever it is, we want to begin to look at this stuff from a different way, right? And have some fun with it, and again, look at, like, let's say you got a high performer, what are they doing behind the scenes? And I started thinking about that last night, because I saw a post, to be honest with you, and it was about, you know, they wanted to be like Tony Robbins. And I'm like, and people are going, oh, do this and do that. Well, all of his stuff is easy to find. Okay, you can go back and watch it. But what are you watching? What are you watching? Okay, you're watching him, you know. Okay, but what are you going to model? You know, and if you have a good a database of information, you can see the progression. Because unfortunately, if you jump in and say you want to model Tony Robbins today, you know, he's wearing the shorts, he's got a, well, now his target is like millennials and stuff, right? But if you're wearing shorts, you're real casual, you're real laid back, you could kind of model that. Well, what about the other, you know, 40 years, over 40 years, that got him to this point? You're taking a snapshot in time. That's another big buzzword I'm using lately. You know, you can model that somewhat, right? But you don't have this background training, experience, thoughts, beliefs, attitudes, behaviors. You also don't probably have about $1 million in the bank to make you so comfortable up there that you don't care. If you had 6,000 people in a room and 3,000 walked out, you'd like, well, okay, well, I mean, you might worry, but you know what I mean? It's a different view set, a view mind, you know? So you need to step back and view that mind differently. That's what I meant by view mind, right? So what you could watch the progression of it. So if you really want to be like Tony Robbins, you need to go back and study the young Tony Robbins, you know, when he was working for Jim Rohn, you know, and all the stories out there, you know, he gives it to you, you know, he talks about how his thoughts changed and this changed, you know, and then what's happened over the years to get him where he's at. Now, then when you go to model, if you're thinking the values, beliefs, attitudes, all that, you know, that he's caring for people, he's loving, he really wants people to get better. He's also very sure of his self-worth, if you will. You know, it's like, it's okay to charge a lot of money for what I do because I'm good at what I do, right? And all this stuff. So if you take that and now you start modeling that, you're going to have a different outcome than somebody that just models, I'll have the physiology of it and the breathing and, you know, I'll play loud music and I'll jump around and do all this, right? You know, again, you're jumping in at you know, stage 4, Tony. What about, did you watch anything with stage 2, Tony? You know, when he was wearing the suits all the time, you know, the blue suit with the white shirt and the red tie, usually had suspenders, very corporate, very, well, if you skip that part, it's hard to get to this part, right? And then you go back and you see him then in high school, he wasn't, you know, Tony Robbins, you know, they weren't beating on the door to get to him. So it's like, that leads to some different things. And again, especially when you're first starting out, you're bringing your own baggage into it, right? So are you willing to let go of all that to step into the next level? So that's what I mean by, you know, we need to begin to look at who and what we're modeling in NLP and even take some of those basic techniques, the visual squash, the new behavior generator, and all these things. And what do we know now about neuroscience? What do we know about the neurobiology of it? Can I explain that, at least in theory, at a deeper level theory, this is what's happening when you do this? You know, how do you go into trance? Trance is the natural response to stress. Why? Well, it has to do with neurochemicals. We could go down that path, right? Because knowledge is the precursor to taking your experience to the next level. If you just have the experience, you'll have one level. If you have knowledge, then you have the experience, it goes to the next level. So that's, you know, that's what we're beginning to add to it. So that's just what I wanted to talk about today. So where do people want to take, you know, the field of neurolinguistic programming? Hopefully it's not going to die, you know, that it doesn't get caught up in, as my dear friend Jason Lynette calls it, founder syndrome. So when the founders begin to disappear, it gets lost because already, you know, some of the founders are gone because everybody always thinks of Bender and Grinder. They forget that other core group, you know, but Mr. Grinder's made us, you know, has passed away. Steve Andreas, going all the way back, Epstein, some of these guys, they're gone now. So the farther we get away from the people that invented it, now, you know, now people are adding their views, which are fine, but we're getting kind of removed from the founders, right? So the trick is, like any true science, you know, because NLP to me is a little bit of science and a lot of art. You know, we want to duplicate this, but we want to keep taking it to the next level. So how we do that is up to the people that's learning it and spreading it and talking about it and experiencing it. So this is all I wanted to do today on the NFNLP forum, is talk about what are you doing different than you did when you first learned NLP or hypnosis. Are you stuck? Are you still parroting the thing, right? And it's easy to become stuck when you have a technology that works. I do want to kind of, when I'm beginning to wrap this up now, you know, it works, you know, and some people always default, well, if you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Doesn't mean you can't make it better. That's why we're not still driving Model T cars, right? They worked. I think we made them much better, you know, and they're constantly making everything better and better. You know, oh, John Grinder's still alive. I thought he passed away. Someone said he's still alive. So anyway, so you want to learn, Steve Andreas passed away. So you want to take your skills to the next level, right? And again, it's not that this stuff doesn't work. Can we make it even better? Can we make it even more thing? Because in the age of knowledge, knowing is not enough. You have to know how to do. And at the same time, with what we do, we know how to do it, but then we need to be able to explain it, right? My current thing is, especially when I teach a basic NLP or basic hypnosis, is after I explain a concept, I ask people to explain it to each other. Because if you can't put it in your own words, it means you do not understand it. You know, how does the visual squash work? Well, it's top dog, underdog thinking. You know, it's conscious, subconscious conflict. I'll give some examples. But if I make you take a pause and you have to explain it to the person sitting next to you, so it makes sense to you and to them, you've taken your learning to the next experience, right? Because now it's internalized. You know, it also stops people from just parroting the stuff that's out there, right? So anyway, have some fun with this. So what are you doing to take your skills to the next level? Because again, sometimes, you know, in the age of information, knowing is not enough. And unfortunately, in the age of over-information, there's bad information out there. You know, there's information people do not understand, you know, and just had a long conversation with someone right before I was late jumping on this call. They, you know, oh, I thought you could just like do this, this, and this with NLP and fix me, and then it would like, I could change my whole family. I'm trying to explain, it doesn't quite work that way. You know, it doesn't quite work that way, you know, and supposedly whatever it is. So anyway, have some fun with it, you know. Next week, when we do the NFNLP forum, which is usually at Wednesday at noon, we're going to talk about what happens when you run into people that want to learn NLP or hypnosis for nefarious purposes, right? They want to use it for nefarious purposes to start a cult or you know, whatever it is. We're going to talk about that. So anyway, I just wanted to have some fun with this. If you like this, click like and share. You know, if you didn't like it, shh, right? And again, my usual sales pitch, I tell all my people I'm training, is whenever you're doing something, always, you know, let people know where they can get in touch with you. So it's, you know, NFNLP at AOL.com is the easiest way to get an email to me. Or, of course, leave a message here on Facebook Live or on YouTube, because this will eventually, the other one will be on YouTube. I'll get those and I can get back to you. I'm going to Oregon, October 10th, 11th, whatever that weekend is, 12th and 13th, and kind of doing a Essentials of NLP where I'll talk. It's just going to be a fun, fast seminar where I'm teaching some of the new stuff. It's going to be fun. That's in Oregon. If you have questions about that, and then I go to beautiful Lebanon, and that's going to be a cool class. I'm teaching neurolinguistic hypnosis. It's a, you know, several day class, and it's going to be fun. And then I'm teaching a 1-day covert hypnosis class and a 1-day epigenetics kind of class. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And then I just, in November in Orlando, Florida, I'm going to be giving a talk at the Hypnosis Education Association, HEA. You can look that up online if you're in the Orlando area. And then after the first of the year, up in beautiful Atlanta, I'm doing a basic NLP. Space is very limited at the center we're doing it. It's going to be 2020 NLP. You know, increase your vision to 2020 with the new NLP. I just got a new sales thing for next year, right? See things with 2020 vision. That's going to be a fun NLP, 5 days in beautiful Atlanta. Let me know if you're interested in that. And I think in December, good Lord willing, I'm doing a hypnosis and NLP for actors in beautiful New York City. Rest of the schedule is up in the air, except for an online addictions training with the IMDHA first weekend in October. And then ICBCH is having a couple of trainings, doing one online, and it's also in November. And then also their conference is in in February. So those are what's set on the schedule. People are pointing out I'm really hitting the bricks and I'm doing some things. Also look for a new book that will be released this week. It's called Habits for Change, using your neurology for success. It's going to be great. That's hitting it's going to be out there this week. And I'm always going to do the thing I've learned how to do at a marketing seminar, which is when the Kindle's first released, it's going to be free on a promotion. And for anybody who gets the free book and leaves a review on Amazon Kindle, I'll have a special gift for you, right? Because I have all these books, then I have a fat loss book coming out, another addiction book coming out, and another book coming out. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Also, I'm working on getting all my books up on Audible by the end of the year. So I hope to see everybody as we trudge the road to happy destiny. Keep in touch and let me know what's going on.